Yeah, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Does it make you a snitch if you snitch on the cops? Well, it's kind of rhetorical if you ask yourself that. I mean, you're basically saying, can you snitch on somebody, and does it make you a snitch? If you're all up in the streets, you're all up about that gangster lifestyle that you claim to be a part of, you're out there running amok, you're slanging dope, you're robbing people, you're shooting at people, pistol whipping, doing all these things, stealing cars, you're in the mix. You're going to come across the cops. It's just a question of when. If you're really about that street life, you're really up in that, you're going to come across the cops, especially in this day and age, with all the technology and everything like that. I mean, in the history of gangsters and mobsters and criminals and all that, I think there was only one person that I've ever heard of that made it all the way through without actually being incarcerated. But yet he was close, and that was Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky had successfully died before he can ever be brought to trial on anything. But his day was coming. He might have been a frail old man, hooked up to an oxygen tank, but it was going to happen. But when you're running up in the streets, you're going to come across the cops. It's just a given. It's par for the course. You're going to come across gangster cops, crooked cops, moral crusader cops, by-the-book cops, all kinds of cops that you can imagine, murdering cops, psychologically unbalanced cops, and the likes. When you come across them in your criminal wheeling and dealings, best believe that you will be arrested at some point in time or incarcerated, or you might even be killed by them. It's just a given. It comes with the territory. Think of a few examples that I'm going to give you right now. Take Freeway Rick, for example. Now, Freeway Rick got involved in all kinds of scandalous shit, dealing with crooked-ass cops and whatnot, planting evidence, entrapment, and everything else that he was involved in that he had become a victim of as a result of his criminal behavior. At the end of the day, Freeway Rick decided that he was going to become a witness against crooked cops. He was going to take the stands to them. He was going to point them all out in open court. Guess what? He thought he was doing a service to his community, his people, and everything else. When he got back into the system, his own people looked at him as a snitch, because that's what he is. He's a rat. Now, when the crash unit in Rampart was doing all of it, what it was doing with that Officer Perez and Mac and Gaines and all the rest of them, we're going to talk about that in the next episode about gangster cops, outlaw cops, whatnot, so that you can understand. But when the Rampart crash unit was doing everything that it was doing, there was all kinds of homies that were out there that were being called upon by the prosecution to testify against these crash unit officers. I remember one such guy that he was being questioned by the prosecution and being kind of like offered an opportunity to get a lot of his cases dismissed, to step forward and become a witness for the prosecution, and the homies told him no. The homies told him, nah, you ain't doing it. You're not going to take the stands and testify against anybody, because being a homie and stuff like that, you just don't do that. You don't testify against anybody. Just the way it is. I mean, you know what you signed up for. When you decided to get into that world, you knew that you were going to come across all these different kinds of cops. So why are you going to testify against them? I mean, testifying against a cop when you're in the streets and you're running and you doing all that shit is the same thing as if you were testifying against a drug dealer, or you're crimey, or giving up information about somebody that you know that's selling jock straps that they stole from the Big Five on the street corner for $1 a pop. It's the same thing. Snitching is snitching, no matter what. So that fool wasn't able to do that, and he wasn't going to do it, and who knows whatever happened, what the outcome was. He probably went S&Y and decided to do it anyways. But yeah, it turned out that most of those people got a lot of their cases overturned without them ever even having to go to court anyways. So it was looked at as such as that if your case is getting overturned by this, well then it's going to happen anyways. But Freeway Rick is a good example. The Rampart cops, another good example. The one guy that actually got paralyzed by these Rampart cops, I mean, he testified against them and everything like that, and a lot of people, you know, frowned down upon it. They didn't look at it in such a positive light. Now, what would make somebody not a snitch in a situation like this? Well, let's just say that you're a regular dude. You're driving down the street. You get profiled by the cops. They pull you up out of your car. They beat your ass. They plant dope on you and all that, and you're just a regular law-abiding citizen. If you decide to take the stands in favor of the prosecution against these cops, I guess you can't be looked at as a snitch because you're not in the lifestyle. We're talking about people that are actually in the criminal lifestyle, people that are actually running the streets and that are involved in that shit. So if you decide to volunteer yourself to become a witness for the prosecution or anything like that, you think you're doing your moral duty or whatnot, and you call yourself a gangster, you ain't a gangster no more in my eyes, or in a lot of my peers, a lot of the people that I associate with, you're not considered a gangster no longer. You lost that. But see, in this day and age, it's becoming acceptable. You have exceptions to the rules to being a snitch nowadays. You could become like a witness against somebody as long as he's not a part of your crew. You could become a witness against a cop because, well, they're the cops. They don't get these same rights. This comes from a lot of these rappers that are out there nowadays. They're all snitching right and left. I mean, look at Tekashi 6ix9ine. He snitched on everybody. And he's more popular than ever before. Actually, I think he's more popular now than he was before he ratted. I could go through the whole laundry list of snitches that are in the rap music world. Everybody from T.I. to Cardi B, all of them snitches. You could just throw a name out there to me, and I bet you I can find where they testified against somebody or planned on testifying against somebody or whatever. They're actually an open witness to some kind of a case or some kind of an issue. Nobody sees anything wrong with it. And that's the issue with this generation, is that they're willing to mix with these rats and get these rats out and to give them some airspace and to give them a platform and a voice. You see it all the time. But a snitch is a snitch is a snitch. It's the way it is. If you're willing to testify against a cop, if you're willing to testify against your own co-defendants, it makes you a rat. But if you got that one guy, and I saw this example one time when I was in Grady County. There was this cat who was from San Francisco. He was trafficking in ecstasy and Molly and all that shit. From Cali to Oklahoma. His contact in Oklahoma snitched on him. Told on him. And his co-defendant was in the unit next to him. So when this guy finally got all his investigative reports, he slapped it up on the glass and said, "Why did you snitch on me?" When they were shooting word to the people that were on the inside of that unit, you know what they said? "Hey, man, he ain't snitching on me or my people. That's between you and him." And this is the mindset of today. But like I said, if you're a regular square, you're a regular civilian, you're a regular citizen, and you take the stands against anybody, well then, I mean, that's just a regular person doing that. And then a lot of other people would say, well, it's also snitching, just like I said on my channel before. If somebody steals my car and I make a police report, I'm a snitch. Really? That's what you consider snitching? That's the excuse and deflection that you use? It's only common sense. If somebody steals your car, you're not going to say, oh, well, let him have it. I'll just get another one. And still, you wrapped up in car payments. You ain't going to get another one. You have to make a police report in order to file an insurance claim. Just the way it goes. Somebody breaks into your house and steals all your shit, and you got all that shit insured, yeah, you're going to make a police report. It's the only way that you're going to get your insurance money. If somebody is stalking your children, you suspect they may be some kind of a weirdo or something like that, you have two choices in a situation like that. You can either pull that dude up out of his car, knock at his door, beat his ass, and go to jail for a hate crime because you targeted a sex offender, or you could just let the law handle that one. In my eyes, that don't make you a snitch because we're dealing with innocent children. But when you're dealing with anything pertaining to the streets, like if I'm out there, I'm selling dope. The cops know I'm selling dope and they're doing everything in their power to entrap me. And they finally entrap me. And the prosecution comes at me and says, hey, we know these cops are crooked and corrupt. We have a case against them. We want you to take the stands as a witness. I'm going to refuse. Because it wasn't like I was an angel out there in the streets. I knew what I signed up for. But it's like I said, you got these gray areas, and then you got areas that are just completely off limits. But snitching on a cop because you're in the streets and you're committing crimes, they're committing crimes as well, that puts you all on the same even playing field. Why are you going to talk shit about a crooked cop who's selling dope on the side, who's stealing dope out of the evidence room, when you doing all the same criminal behavior? It becomes a hypocrisy at that point. So snitching on him would be the same thing as if you were to snitch on the local dope dealer or the chop shop that's down the street. Or like I said, the guy selling jock straps that he stole from Big Five. I just thought this would be an interesting one for you to understand because in this day and age, many people out there seem to not really understand what it means to be snitching and stuff. They think that there's like exceptions when it comes to the streets, and there's no exceptions when it comes to the streets. The only exceptions is, like I said, and anybody who has half a fucking brain would say, yeah, if it's pertaining to your children, somebody else's children, your car that got stolen, your house that got burglarized, maybe somebody did something else in regards to your property, your business, then yeah, that's not considered to be snitching. But when you're out there and you're running the streets and there's a crooked cop or there's an abusive cop, you already know what you signed up for. If that cop ain't going to kill you, if that cop ain't going to plant dope on you or get you caught up in entrapment, somebody else is going to set you up in a bad drug deal. Or somebody else is going to murk your ass because they just don't like you. These are the streets. And you need to understand that when you're playing in the game of the streets, you're going to come across all of this kind of shit. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when and how. Is how it finally all comes down and it ends. And it's just like that. So if you decide you're going to point out a crooked cop in court, well, guess what? You have graduated to the level of snitch, and that's what that makes you. You already know what it is. You heard it right here. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, non-sugarcoat, not politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that dick of reality. And I'm out.